The Seahawks are completely unrecognizable. It's basically a new franchise. Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner moving on was weird. Pete Carroll stepping down was even weirder. But now, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Geno Smith are all gone too. Seattle hit the full reset button. And after year one, Mike McDonald already has a new quarterback, Sam Darnold. It's a risk, but probably a necessary one. It doesn't seem like a complete rebuild for the Seahawks, but it's at least a retool. There aren't super high expectations for Seattle, but Darnold is interesting. He has earned a big contract and a shot to be a franchise guy, but can the Seahawks put him in position to succeed? Sam Darnold revived his career last season with the Vikings and was able to cash in with the Seahawks. Seattle gave him a 3-year, $100.5 million deal. There was a clear need at quarterback after trading Geno Smith to the Raiders, and there is some familiarity there already for Darnold. The Seahawks offensive coordinator is Clint Kubiak, who was the 49ers offensive coordinator in 2023 when Darnold was the backup to Brock Purdy. Darnold only spent the one season in San Francisco. He got a 1-year, $10 million contract from Minnesota and was the starter for the entire season after J.J. McCarthy tore his meniscus in the preseason. Darnold changed the narrative around his career. Kevin O'Connell deserves a lot of credit. KOC is a miracle worker. We saw it with Josh Dobbs too. Darnold was literally in MVP discussions after 1 month. He was the NFC Offensive Player of the Month in September after he had a league-high 11 touchdowns and 118.9 passer rating. Minnesota started 5-0 and then lost back-to-back. The Vikings responded with a 9-game winning streak. Darnold was putting together game-winning drives and comebacks. He passed for 5 touchdowns without a pick against the Falcons in Week 14. With a win against the Packers in Week 17, the Vikings were 14-2. Darnold was well on his way to a big contract, but he probably played himself out of some money in Week 18 and in the wild card. It was a very disappointing end to a promising season. Darnold didn't throw a touchdown and went 18 of 41 against the Lions in the regular season finale. It cost the Vikings the NFC North crown. It made Minnesota have to play the Rams in the wild card on the road, where it lost 27-9 as Darnold was sacked 9 times and lost a fumble. Darnold fell apart when it mattered most, but it didn't completely take away from his season. He was named to the Pro Bowl after throwing for 4,319 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions with an 102.5 passer rating. Darnold proved a lot of doubters wrong. He was previously considered a bust, and rightfully so. He was the number 3 pick at the 2018 NFL Draft to the Jets. It's been hard for any quarterback to succeed with the Jets, even Aaron Rodgers. Darnold never threw 20 touchdowns in a season and simply wasn't good enough. The Jets knew it and decided to move on and draft Zach Wilson. That somehow went even worse than Darnold. It wasn't over for Darnold yet. He was a high pick and did show flashes. The Panthers took a chance on him. Probably one of the only franchises worse to develop a quarterback than the Jets. Darnold was a mess, as was Baker Mayfield. Carolina wasted Baker and Darnold, who have both gotten big contracts since. At least Bryce Young is starting to show promise. Darnold moved on and sat for the 49ers and got another chance with the Vikings. It very well could have been his last shot, and he made the most of it. It's going to be different not having KOC calling the shots or having Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to throw to, but Darnold has proven he can perform well if it's a good situation. But it seems unlikely it'll be better with the Seahawks. The Seahawks needed a solution at quarterback after trading Geno Smith to the Raiders. He was sent to Las Vegas for a 3rd-round pick. The move made sense. Geno gets to play for Pete Carroll again. He made the Pro Bowl twice playing for him in Seattle. Like Sam Darnold did with the Vikings, Geno revived his career with the Seahawks. He was also drafted by the dumpster fire known as the New York Jets. Geno had 1-year stints with the Giants and Chargers before signing with the Seahawks in 2019 to back up Russell Wilson. He didn't start for 2 years and then started 4 games in 2021 when Russ got hurt. Russ got traded after the season to the Broncos, and Geno won the starting job over Drew Lock. He won Comeback Player Player of the Year after passing for 4,282 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. He led the league with a 69.8 completion percentage. After the season, he got a 3-year, $75 million deal. Geno threw for 20 touchdowns to 9 interceptions in 2023. Last season, he dipped to 21 touchdowns and 15 interceptions with 4,320 yards and a 93.2 passer rating. Moving on from Geno for Darnold makes sense. Geno is 34 years old, and Darnold turns 28 in June. Geno only had 1 season remaining and $31 million. The Seahawks do take $13.5 million in dead money. Darnold was the preference, and the Seahawks got him. Sam Howell still has 1 more season on his rookie deal after the Seahawks traded for him a year ago from Washington. He will stay as the backup after Darnold got paid. Unfortunately for Sam Darnold, Seattle's weapons aren't as good as Minnesota's. Geno Smith had better options than Darnold does now. The Seahawks' #1 wide receiver last season isn't gone. Last season, it was Jackson Smith-Njigba. He was a 2023 first-round pick and is coming off of 100 receptions for 1,130 yards and 6 touchdowns. He has developed into what the Seahawks thought he could be. Maybe it played a role, but DK Metcalf requested a trade, and it didn't take long for the Seahawks to ship him away to the Steelers for a 2nd-round pick and 2 pick swaps. DK was entering the last year of a 3-year, $72 million extension with $18 million guaranteed. He got a 5-year, $150 million extension from the Steelers. Pittsburgh needed another threat to pair with George Pickens. Those two are surely the most chaotic wide receiver duo in the NFL. Every highlight of someone randomly fighting someone behind a play for no reason at all over the past couple seasons has either been Pickens or DK. It's a perfect match. DK isn't the only Seahawks wide receiver moving on, so is Tyler Lockett. He was a staple for a decade. It's going to be weird not seeing him slide down early to avoid hits in the open field. He never missed more than 1 game in a season and had a 4-year stretch of 1,000-yard campaigns. No DK or Lockett is a big change. Behind JSN is thin. Seattle is definitely in the market for another wide receiver, maybe Cooper Kupp. Jake Bobo is the only returning wide receiver who had at least 100 yards last season. He had 107 yards. Noah Fant helps. He had 500 yards and 1 touchdown last season. The Seahawks did sign Marquez Valdez-Scantling to a 1-year deal. MVS was a solid option for the Chiefs for 2 seasons and the Packers for 4, but struggled playing between the Bills and Saints last year. There are some good wide receivers in the 2025 NFL draft, and the Seahawks have the number 18 pick. It would make sense to go wide receiver. At some point in the draft, it makes sense to draft a quarterback too. A mid-round option seems logical, whether it's a guy with high upside like Jalen Milroe or an experienced passer such as Tyler Shuck, who spent 7 years in college. Darnold is a bridge quarterback, but he's an ideal bridge quarterback. I had to add an extra portion to the video because Cooper Kupp did in fact sign with the Seahawks. It makes a ton of sense and was expected by a lot of people, including myself. He got a 3-year, $45 million deal. He really helps fill the void that DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett left, and it's a really familiar spot for him. For one, it's still on the West Coast where he played for the Rams, but more importantly, before the Rams took him in the 3rd round in 2017, he played at Eastern Washington in Cheney, Washington. It was a local school for him after he grew up in Yakima, Washington. He's a Washington guy, and now he gets to play in his home state. It's a steep price, but Kupp might be worth it. He was once the best wide receiver on paper in the league. Back in 2021, he won the receiving triple crown, leading the NFL with 145 receptions, 1,947 yards, and 16 touchdowns. He was the offensive player of the year and was just simply incredible. He got a big 3-year, $80.1 million extension, but has dealt with injuries since. Last year, he only played in 12 games with 67 receptions for 710 yards and 6 touchdowns. The Rams tried to trade him, but nobody wanted to pay him $20 million for 2025. But now he has a new home near his old home in Seattle. The Seahawks' biggest signing, other than Sam Darnold, was surely DeMarcus Lawrence. After 11 seasons with the Cowboys, he's headed to Seattle on a 3-year, $42 million deal with $18 million guaranteed. There is a connection there. The Seahawks defensive coordinator, Aiden Dirty, was the defensive line coach in Dallas from 2021 to 2023. Lawrence is a 4-time Pro Bowl selection, but only played in 4 games last season due to a foot sprain. He had 14 tackles, 3 sacks, and 5 quarterback hits. The Seahawks also signed offensive tackle Josh Jones to a 1-year deal for up to $4.75 $25 million. He spent last season in Baltimore, but didn't start any games. The Seahawks haven't made many new signings, but have re-signed some important guys. Linebacker Ernest Jones was re-signed to a 3-year, $33 million contract. He got traded twice last year. He played 3 seasons with the Rams and was traded to the Titans before the regular season. Then he got traded to Seattle, where he started 10 games, making 94 tackles. The Seahawks had a good defense last season, and keeping the pieces together was definitely important. Along with Jones, the Seahawks re-signed defensive tackle Jarran Reed to a 3-year, $22 million deal. He has been in Seattle for most of his career. He was drafted by the Seahawks in 2016, and after 5 seasons, he had 1-year stints with the Chiefs and Packers. Reed returned to Seattle in 2023 on a 2-year deal, and will stick around even longer now. He had 45 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and 15 quarterback hits last season.